What happens if we give AI control of the financial system, which is already happening, and it never sleeps? It never takes a vacation. Then if you are a human being and you want to be an investor or a mark or a banker or something, you have to be active all the time. If you take rest, you're left behind. I talk with the leaders of the AI revolution in different countries, and I always ask them two questions. The first question I ask is, why are you moving so fast? I understand there are many positive potentials, but there are also risks. Why not move more slowly and carefully? Almost everybody tells me the same thing. We know there are risks. We would like to slow down and invest more in safety, but we cannot trust our human competitors. If we slow down and the other company or the other country doesn't slow down, they win the race. They will control the world. So we must move faster because we can't trust our human competitors. Then I ask them, okay, do you think you will be able to trust the super intelligent AIs that you're developing? And the same people who just told me they can't trust the other humans now assure me that we can trust the AIs. And this is really almost insane. That, we have thousands of years of experience with humans. We know they are problematic sometimes, but we also have experience in building trust. Like, we have countries with millions of people that trust each other. AIs, we have no experience with them. They are not humans, they are not even organic. We have no idea what happens when you develop a super intelligent AI. So to gamble the future of humanity on this idea that, we could trust the AIs, this sounds very, very dangerous.
흥미로운 게 한국의 옛날 속담 중에서 구관이 명관이라는 말이 있는데요. 그러니까 새로운 형태의 무엇인가 믿을 수 있는 어떤 엔터티를 만들고 싶었지만 사실은 이게 새로운 뷰로크라시즘일 수 있다는 그런 시각이 독특하고 아주 흥미로웠습니다.
사실 저는 이제 유발하라리 교수님의 책을 사피엔스부터 시작해서 다 굉장히 아주 감명 깊게 읽은 독자고 빅팬이기도 합니다. 특히 이번 책 같은 경우는 과학기술이 사실 굉장히 중요한 주제인데 이제 이번 책에서 전작과 달리 정보라는 걸 굉장히 중요하게 이야기를 하고 있어요. 근데 정보라는 것이 굉장히 이제 정의하기가 어려운 단어이고 심지어 이제 과학에서는 정보에는 아무 의미가 없다. 이제 이런 말까지 하는데 이제 이 책에서도 정보에 대해서 예를 들어 정보는 네트워크를 하나로 결속시키는 접착제다. 이제 이런 표현도 있고 포퓰리즘은 정보를 무기로 간주한다. 이런 여러 가지 의미로 정보라는 단어를 사용하시는데 정보라는 것이 무엇인지가 어떻게 생각하시는지 알고 싶고 정보를 전면에 내세우신 이유가 무엇인지 알고 싶습니다.
I focus on information because the subject of the book is information revolutions and especially the creation of new information technology in the present, like AI. I know that the word information is used in different contexts, in different ways. And maybe the most important message of the book is that information isn't truth. The truth is actually quite a rare subset of the information in history. Most of the information that people produce and use to connect a lot of people into an army or a state or a corporation is not truth. It is often fiction and fantasy and imagination. Maybe I give two examples. Let's say we want to build an atom bomb. We need two things. First of all, we need to know some facts.
Yes.
If you try to build an atom bomb and you ignore the facts of physics, you will not build a bomb. So you need to know some truth. But just knowing the truth about physics is not enough to build an atom bomb, because you need help from millions of other people. How do you get millions of people to cooperate on a project like building an atom bomb? If you just tell them the facts of physics, E equals mc squared, now cooperate to build a bomb, nobody will help. Because why should I dedicate my life to this project? Because E equals mc squared? No. Here comes usually some story. You need some truth, but you also need to build order, and very often it's easier to build order with fiction than with the truth. So how do you produce a system that balances facts and fiction in order to create these large-scale corporations? And in most cases, ultimately, the people who understand facts, they get their orders from the people who tell fictional stories. Some religious or ideological story to dedicate their lives, sometimes risk their lives, for a common project. Maybe I give two examples. Like in my country, in Israel, the nuclear physicists who are working on building atom bombs, they ultimately get their orders from rabbis and people who tell these imaginary stories. If you want to build an ideology or a religion and you ignore the facts, it still explodes. Actually, it's easier to build some kind of motivating ideology from fantasy than from facts. And this is one of the paradoxes at the heart of human history, that over thousands of years, you see how humans, they know more about the world, we can invent more and more powerful technology, but then we use it in the service of some fantasy, of some fiction. And this is why sometimes we are so self-destructive. Because, again, we know so many facts, but ultimately the orders are given in the name of a fantasy.
정부의 두 가지 측면을 강조하고 싶어서 이렇게 했다. 알겠습니다. 사실 이 넥서스를 읽고서 느끼는 감정은 인공지능이 얼마나 위험한가를 이제 경고하시는 거라고 생각을 합니다. 근데 이렇게 새롭게 등장한 IT 기업과 인공지능 기업들을 우리가 어떻게 하면 통제를 할 수 있을까? 이제 이 좀 방법에 대한 이야기인데 이제 그것에 대한 혹시 생각이 있으시다면은 꼭 듣고 싶습니다.
It's difficult, but it is possible. We shouldn't despair of it. This is the job of governments and of citizens. The book is not an attempt to prophesize the future. It warns people about certain dangerous scenarios. And it gives people information, knowledge about the AI revolution so that more people can take part in the debate about how to develop and to regulate AI. At the present moment, very few people in very few countries understand really what is AI, what is the AI revolution. And they are taking maybe the most important decisions in human history. And they don't represent humanity. They are just a very small number of people who are usually not even politicians. As you say, they are managing of companies. And this is very dangerous. But it is possible, if enough citizens get involved, it is possible to limit the power of the big companies. In the 19th century, the big companies in the Industrial Revolution, they sent children to work in factories at age 8 or 10, and instead of going to school, and they said, we have to do it, because if we don't do it, and our competitors will do it, and then we will be bankrupt. And eventually, they were stopped. If you send them to school, yes, maybe in the short term, you will make less money, but in the long term, the country will have much more educated people, and it will actually be much more rich, not poor. So that more people in more countries understand what is AI, what is the AI revolution, and can join the debate, and together we can have a political process. One person or a few people dictating everything. We have an open conversation. Different people voice their views, their interests, and we can reach some, ideally, a consensus or a common agreement about what to do.
알겠습니다.
네, 정말 과학자 중에서도 물리학자로서는 딱 어울리는 질문을 해주신 것 같아요.
Oh, yes, very much.
사실 물리학자들은 실제로 존재하는 세상을 연구하는 사람들이죠. 가상이 아니라 실제 세상을 연구하는데 아마 인공지능이 만들어낸 특히 에이전트 같은 것들이 만들어내는 것은 가상의 세상일 것 같은데 많은 결정들을 우리가 사는 실제 세상과는 상관없는 곳에서 이제 벌이기 시작할 텐데 이게 피할 수 없는 우리의 미래일까요? 아니면은 피할 수 없다면 어떤 식으로 이런 세상을 우리가 준비해야 되는 건지 생각하신 바가 있다면은 좀 들을 수 있으면 좋을 것 같습니다.
And as I said, human power comes from this large-scale organization. And large-scale organization always depended on creating a kind of virtual world. The world created from ideas and from fantasies is becoming more powerful than the physical world and the biological world. So even if you go back thousands of years, one of the biggest inventions in human history was a very, very simple technological invention, which still made a big change. Mud and a stick, a piece of wood. What can you do with mud and a piece of wood? You can write. That the first writing invented in Mesopotamia, in what is today Iraq, more than 5,000 years ago. Even though this was such a simple technological invention, it completely changed the world because it created a kind of virtual reality. Things that don't necessarily exist in the physical world, but they are recorded in these clay tablets. What were these things? Property rights and tax lists and things like that. Before the invention of writing, ownership or property, what did it mean? But to get taxes, you need to remember who owns what and who paid their taxes and who didn't pay their taxes, and nobody could remember all that. So before the invention of writing, actually there were no kingdoms and no empires, only very small towns and villages. And this became the basis for the first empires and kingdoms in the world. So this flimsy thing, just a piece of mud, it was far more powerful in a way than the physical reality. So the same thing is happening now, but not with mud, but with silicon. That today, what does it mean that you own a house? That somewhere in a computer, there is a record that you own that house. And this is increasingly managed by AIs. So let's say that you want to prove that the house is yours, but the AI that manages the digital archives says, no, the house is not yours. That's it. You lost your house because an AI said. This is the kind of world that we are now entering, in which more and more power is in this virtual reality of just digital information managed by AI.
사실 굉장히 현재 시대에 오면서 오히려 잘못된 정보가 바로잡히는 게 더 어려워지는 그런 현상들이 일어나고 있어요. 아까 그 하라리라는 성을 바로잡는데 정말 안 되더라.
레바논.
네, 레바논 성. 네네. 이런 얘기를 하셨지 않습니까? 그러니까 AI는 굉장히 정확할 것 같지만 잘못되거나 아니면 틀린 정보는 점점 더 퍼져나가고 심지어는 음모론을 발전해 나가는데 사실 심리학자들은 이 현상을 어떻게 거짓이 진실로 변하는가에 관련된 연구들을 많이 보거든요. 이것과 관련해서 이제 디지털 마녀사냥, 이 마녀사냥 비유를 많이 하셨잖아요. 어떻게 하면 이 악순환과 연결고리를 끊을까요?
Well, the most basic principle has been formulated by the propaganda minister of Nazi Germany, Joseph Goebbels. He said almost a century ago, if you tell a lie once, it remains a lie. If you repeat a lie 1,000 times, it becomes the truth. This was his basis for Nazi propaganda, and this is still the case that if you just repeat the same lie, the same fake news, the same conspiracy theory again and again and again, then people believe it. And in the kind of news market or information market, the truth suffers from three big disadvantages. First of all, the truth is costly, whereas fiction and lies are cheap. The truth is costly because if you want to write the truth about anything, nuclear physics or psychology or history, you need to do a lot of research. You need to invest time, effort, money, gathering evidence, analyzing it, fact-checking it. It's very costly. Fiction, in contrast, very cheap. You just write anything you want, very cheap. Secondly, the truth is often complicated because reality is complicated. And people don't like complicated stories. Usually people like simple stories. And finally, the truth is sometimes unpleasant, even painful. People go to a psychologist because they need help in understanding the truth about their life. Why? Because it's often painful. If it was very attractive, they wouldn't need the help of therapists. And it's all the way to the level of entire nations that often don't want to know the truth about themselves and what they have done in the past or what they are doing now. So in this competition between costly, complicated, painful truth and cheap, simple, attractive fiction, fiction tends to win. So if you have a completely kind of open market of information, the truth will be flooded, will sink under an ocean of fictions and fantasies and lies. If we want to get to the truth, we need to give the truth help. One help is establishing institutions that are dedicated to researching the truth, even though it's costly and complicated. So universities and media organizations like newspapers and courts, these are three examples of institutions that are dedicated to the research of the truth. People sometimes, they say, we don't need these institutions. Why not have just kind of a free market of information? Everybody can say anything they want and the truth will float to the surface. It won't. It will sink to the bottom. Now, one of the problems is that we are flooded by enormous amounts of information, including fake news, conspiracy theories, produced by bots and algorithms and AIs. And we need a very strong regulation against AIs that pretend to be human beings. If you go online and you see something or you read something, you need to know, is this something that is said by a real human being? Or is it a bot or an AI pretending to be a human being? I would advise extreme caution before we censor human beings. This is protected by freedom of speech. And even if a human being says a lie online or somewhere, should be very careful before we censor it. But bots don't have freedom of speech. So we need to, as quickly as possible, have a very clear law that bots cannot pretend to be human beings and pollute our information sphere with these enormous amounts of fake information produced by fake people.